Hey there hunters, and welcome back to the Gunners Guild. For real this time, we're doing gunner stuff. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of non-Monster Hunter content lately while I wait for title updates. Apologies, but I'm still playing Monster Hunter. But today though, we're going to be doing another speedrun breakdown, and I'm going to be doing this a little bit differently. Since today's topic is Lucent Nargacuga, and both the light bowgun and the heavy bowgun do pretty much the same things, we're going to do both these runs. And so this way I can explain and show the differences between the two weapons and how they approach the same hunt. So I'll let them play out as they're rather short, but I'll discuss the key points of this hunt while they play. First is that I always do the light bowgun run first before heavy bowgun because it gives you much more freedom to learn the monster's attack patterns. And Lucent Nargacuga is a very scripted fight, so that helps a lot. And what I mean by scripted is that Lucent has a lot of attacks and patterns that it only does at certain HP thresholds, so it's super easy to predict if you're observant. You can kind of guess where you're at in a hunt by what auras you break and what moves it's doing, and I'll get to that later. To start, let's discuss hit zones for Lucent Nargacuga. Pause here really quick if you want to get familiarized with it, but I don't want to take up too much of the screen, so I'm just going to post this really quick. But basically though, Lucent Nargacuga does have great hit zones all around for us gunners, which is surprising because in 5th gen, Capcom has seemed to have it out for us gunners, and usually absolutely destroys gunner hit zones. On top of that, Lucent Nargacuga in the past had awful gunner and elemental hit zones, so I was not expecting them to be good. And while the raw hit zones do look super enticing for spreads, which I did run, it's the elemental hit zones that are the real star here. With all the elemental buffs that we had here in Sunbreak, getting monsters with 25 and 30 elemental zones is just too good to pass up. Typically monsters have like a 20 zone, 30 is the highest we'll ever see. So because of this, our armor of choice is going to be Ice Pierce. For our gun choice, we really only have two options, Daora's bowguns or Lunagaren's bowguns. Daora bowguns are weaker, but they do have status ammo for backup, which is kind of what we need to keep a monster down, so we can get those nice clean pierce lines. Lunagaren's light bowgun has rapid fire ice pierce, which is not great. It's better damage per shot than single fire, but it is shooting slower, so if you can get a monster dead before you run out of single shot ammo, you're always going to be faster than rapid fire. If you can't kill a monster before you run out of like your single shot ammo, then you have no choice but to run rapid fire. Which is fine though, it's not that much slower, it's like 10 or 20 seconds tops. The real difference here is that the Lunagaren light bowgun I think only has sleep as its backup and exhaust ammo, which we're not really going to be able to use too much on Lucent. So it doesn't have as much forced downtime as Daora's, which has para and stickies, which are much better. Now our line we want to do on Lucent for pierce as much as we can would be from the head to the abdomen to the tail. While the cut wings do have better hit zones, it's more important to keep Nargacuga down. So we want to damage those when it's up, as breaking each of those cut wings causes a topple. So the main challenge to this fight is keeping Lucent down by managing your statuses and your arm break topples. You should be able to get about 4 stops in this hunt, and that's pretty much enough time to kill Nargacuga without having to waste too much time evading and repositioning. Like other speedruns, we're not actually going to see a lot of his attacks because it's a speedrun. We don't do that. We keep this thing locked down. So this fight is much more about nailing the script than actually fighting the monster, compared to stuff like the Malzeno and the Kushala where it was actually, like we're fighting the monster. There's still a little fight here in the TA rules, but not much as you'll see. So let's start with the light bowgun run. The start here is nothing special. Do note though, I do use all the buff consumables since I expected the fight to be about 3 minutes. It's not really much of a time save though, eating a demon drug just takes way too long, and when you're trying to shave off mere seconds here, sometimes that raw just doesn't do anything for you, so you don't necessarily have to use the demon drug. So when I start here, I'm trying to get some damage in so I can get the enrage. Because you do much more damage to Lucent when it's enraged, not only do its elemental hit zones get increased on the head and the tail, but it also takes 20% more damage when enraged, so we do want to keep it enraged as much as possible. Sadly, we can't use sonic bombs in TA to force the enraged. So I also start by setting up the KO because I want to get the KO once it gets enraged, and that way I can get the most damage out of it. Plus stickies do damage, so it does help cross that enraged threshold without spending too much ice ammo. The enraged threshold is 1650 damage. When Nargacuga is not enraged, it typically just does one jump to the side here before pouncing. When it is enraged, it'll usually jump around twice before the pounce. So on this tail slam, I didn't actually need a counter evade, and you shouldn't do it if you don't have to because it does take more time than just rolling. But the tail slam hitbox can be super wonky and linger for a long period of time, so I just wanted to be safe, so I used counter mines. It does cost me a couple seconds though. So now that its eyes are red, I know that it's going to enrage, so I do finish the KO with the extra stickies I had. If you shoot the ground with the stickies, they blow up immediately rather than wait 6 seconds, so it's faster, and it made it so I didn't have to deal with the enrage roar. From here, this is our first actual pierce line. We're trying to do as much as the head to the abdomen to the tail as we can. and I'm avoiding the wings for now because I want to save those for the arm topples later. So during this next pounce, I know that Nargacuga will jump at me, so I set myself up to be perpendicular to where it would land, and then I dodged a countermine since it's free iframes. Then I was exactly where I needed to be to shoot from wingtip to wingtip. I was trying to weaken the arms for the topple, but I knew they wouldn't break right here. When he does his cloaked slash attack here, I was actually trying to get in close into the side so I can get the arm break, so I waited until like the last second to dodge it because I really wanted that arm break. You could just back up and be safe, but I was trying to just, stay to the side so I had more width to shoot that pierce. Then this tail slam, I can't actually countermine evade this because when he's enraged he does 2 tail slams, and you don't have enough time to countermine again before the second tail slam crashes onto your dome, so you need to roll it, which isn't too bad. I'm just afraid of the lingering hitbox, but once it finishes I again go for the arm by making my pierce line tail to the cut wing tip. I'm still trying to maximize damage, but I really want to get that arm break. This roar that has the spittle indicates that Lucent is going to do that spinning dash, which for light bowgun isn't too hard to avoid. Again, you can just countermine. You just need to make sure that you're moving perpendicular away from his line. But I did get a stagger and stopped it. You'll see though I can manage it with heavy bowgun's fat roll. Then he goes into the poison tail tip mode, which is great because it's just more free damage time. So this mode does change most of his attacks, but thankfully we got the arm topple, so this is going to be our second down where we can just dump pierce into him. This poison tail tip acts like an aura for Nargacuga, and when you break the tail tip, it stops all the attacks that he gets while in this mode, putting him back into like a normal enraged Nargacuga state, so you do want to do that as quickly as possible. And then you get a stagger for the tail break. Not a topple though. And then typically at about 50% of his HP, Lucent's going to do the big finisher move that every monster gets. It's not really all that hard to follow and evade, but for light bowgun, this is where I swap to standard ice ammo because I don't want to waste my pierce, and I just start shooting in hopes to get some extra damage in. Standard elemental ammo is pretty slow like trajectory wise, so trying to land these is difficult. And it's super funny that I land one single shot, I'm not even sure where, but it must have been the face, which caused him to air dunk out of the attack, and I'll never be able to recreate that. If I had not gotten the dunk here, it would have been fine though, because the plan was to use the countermine on the big tail slam backwards, which would leave me a nice clean line from tail to head, and then dump a clip into him, then use para ammo to stop him right there, so I still have 8 more seconds of dumping ice ammo from tail to head, which is great. It still may have been more optimal to do it that way, but this worked out great too. So this is technically our third down for the line of pierce, and because it didn't go as scripted, I almost forgot to use my para ammo at the end. So this whole wake up jump section just kind of freaked me out because he attacked after 1 side jump, which I was expecting 2 because he's enraged, and then he attacked after 2, so I was confused trying to figure out what he was going to do and trying to get back into the groove of things, and I was just trying to dodge everything he had. Thankfully light bowgun can evade super easily, but it just shows how much I panic when the fight goes off script. Even if it doesn't look like I panicked, I definitely did. I was trying to be delicate when I was shooting him and not break the arm during other stagger animations, because if you do, you don't get the arm topple. I'm not sure why part break topples don't supersede normal staggers, but that's 5th gen Monster Hunter for you. So I kind of backed off a little bit and went back and forth between the arms for the break. And then when I got the break, this is now our 4th topple, which is usually where the script would end after 4 downs, but we did kind of go off script a little bit. So I ended up using the paras here as he gets up, and then I can finish him off. And this fight would have kind of ended up in about the same place if I didn't get the air dunk during the big slam, because I would have just gotten the para over there after the slam, and then the second arm break when he gets up from that, and then he would have gone into poison tail mode, and then I could have just finished it there. But yeah, small adjustments made. And so for light bowgun, the run's actually super comfy. There's not a whole lot you actually have to dodge and avoid. There's just a couple little things here and there. For the most part, it's just about managing those arm breaks and those statuses. But let's go ahead and take a look at the heavy bowgun side, which was way more fun to me, but it's also a lot scarier. This run is far from perfect, I think, but it's good enough for me. So the start for heavy bowgun is a little different because we do want to be super far away from Lucent, so we don't have to use a shoulder check for the roar, and then that way we can get in more damage early on. Plus it lets us prep our wire bug build up a little bit. So we swing far to the right and grab the buff bug here, and then the first attack he does, which is these poison darts, are actually really scary because you can sidestep them, but only depending on how far away you are from Lucent. If you're closer, it hits, and then also they kind of like land differently, so sometimes they're going to hit anyways, so I was afraid when he did that. But I did end up sidestepping it, which is great because it's a better opening than other attacks, as I can keep just dumping rounds into him. And then when it jumped, I did see that his eyes were red, so I knew it was going to be enrage time. And like light bowgun, I want the KO on enrage state for more damage, so I knew where Lucent was going to land, and then I got my stickies ready. And since Sunbreak nerfs sticky ammos, like sticky 1s are almost as good as sticky 3s, because typically you do have a bigger clip size for them and they shoot faster and reload faster. But 4 stickies and a shoulder check is enough to get the KO, and thankfully we do need to shoulder check the roar, so that has to hit. But this way we actually don't have to rely on spare shot and don't need to reload, which would be awful. And then when it's KO'd, I do reposition before I drop my setting sun, not just because I want the good lines, but because I have to manage the Wyvern Ride buildup so I get the mount when I need it, so I can prep my other ammos. If you do it too early, you can break the KO early, which is a waste of time. So as it gets up, I get the Wyvern Ride, which is great, and then I start moving my damage to the arms, because now I want to arm break topple so I can keep him from moving again. He does the spinning roar here, which Fat Roll can actually dodge, which is funny. Just make sure that you roll perpendicular to the direction that he's facing, so that when you come out of the roll, you have that nice line going from wingtip to wingtip. I should have just set up setting sun while I was here, but I didn't want to keep shooting across the arms while it was down because I was afraid it would break the other arm. So I was trying to reposition back behind Lucent and use my setting sun that was already up and try to go from tail tip to the arm to kind of save some damage. But this is where this kind of run fell apart a little bit. I took a hit here, but I can't do much about this combo attack because my only means of defense is shoulder check and redirection. Shoulder check would have just made me eat the other attacks, and redirect, as you can see, just gets me hit from the pounce anyways because Lucent's too damn big. I don't think this actually wasted too much time though, because I would have to wait for Lucent to stop moving before I could shoot again anyways. So I was just going to keep going with the run despite taking the hit. Do a couple of redirects, and I keep shooting his head and belly and tail, and we're trying to just get back into the groove of things. And then we get to the big tail slam, so I know he's like halfway done, which I don't actually have standard ice ammo for this setup, so I was actually taking the time to craft, and if I was smart, I would have reloaded too, but I'm dumb. But you can see going from this tail tip to the head does a lot of damage, and this is what I was actually looking for with light bowgun as well. And I needed another stop after this attack, so I did start my para, but then he jumped back, and as you can see, I didn't actually expect the para to land because it hooked to the left, but thankfully it did. I kind of fumbled with my ammo to get back to Ice Pierce. Then as it gets up again for its next attack, you really need to be ready for this with Lucent after this 50% phase. The slow taunt into tail slam. Normal Nargacuga does this as well, so I would practice against that, but he does the regular tail slam after it. It's super fast though. Lucent Nargacuga though jumps to the side and tail slams at the same time. So if you roll to the left away from it, it will catch you and you will die. So you have to roll forward. Thankfully doing this made him across from my setting sun again, so I could keep shooting through that. But then Narg goes back to the poison tail spike mode, which is plenty of time to keep dumping ammo into him, and then he just dies. Like I said though, little messy. I wish I had not gotten hit from the attack at the beginning, but that wasn't the end of the world. I could definitely do these faster with the new gear we have, but I'm going to wait for some meaningful changes from Title Update 3 or 4 to keep running these guys. Lucent Nargacuga is a lot of fun though, I do recommend fighting him. Now regarding spread ammo, yes I tried using spreads, but it's not good for Lucent despite the hit zones. He just moves too much. And our good spread bowguns from Orgasmo and Tetranodon don't really have status ammo to keep him down, so Magnum Malo spread 3s would probably be a better bet since they have sticky and exhaust ammo to use, but it's also significantly weaker. But yeah, that was the Lucent Nargacuga runs. I hope you guys learned something or got some insight as to what I do and what I'm thinking when I do these runs. Thank you all for watching, and thank you again to my Patreon members. I really appreciate the support. Even if it doesn't sound like it, that's me, but I really can't thank you enough. If you guys want to come hang out, theory craft, or talk shop, feel free to join the Discord in the description below. But that's all for me. Thank you. Peace.